CFL 110, your weekly trip around the biggest stories in the Canadian Football League with Jeff Hamilton and Andrew Hustler Patterson.
Hey, what's going on, everyone, and welcome to another edition of CFL 110 as the push to the Canadian Football League playoffs continues. Andrew Patterson and Jeff Hamilton with you here on our weekly show on the Winnipeg Sports Talk channel. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And for all of you Jet fans that are popping in thinking that we're going to be talking about the Kyle Connor extension with the Jets, hang tight. We'll be all over that live today, 1 p.m. right here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Let's get right into it and welcome in Jeff Hamilton. Jeff, if you would like, if you need money anytime soon, look for Kyle Connor around the streets of Winnipeg because he got paid. I know that's not the topic, but everyone in Winnipeg talking about that this morning as we go to air.
Yeah, clearly have to acknowledge the massive bag of cash in the room right now, Huss. And to your point, I think I'll probably have to tag wherever Kyle Connor's going and check any of the couch cushions of any of the restaurants he hangs out at, in case a couple big bills fall out. But yeah, no, congratulations to him. Obviously, and big news for Winnipeg to get that deal done before the season starts officially tomorrow. So good news in Winnipeg for sure.
Yeah, listen, big news before the season starts for the Jets. We have the Winnipeg Blue Bombers right now in an absolute dogfight in the Western Division as the push to the playoffs gets going. And, Jeff, you've got Saskatchewan, who has clinched their playoff spot and have the best defense in the league on top of the division at 11-4 after their win. And then it is so tight. And I can't remember it being this tight at this point in the season. We know 4 teams, and we'll get to that. 4 teams from the West are going to make the playoffs. But BC's on the bye. They've got their extra win already. They're 9-7. Winnipeg and Calgary at 8-7. But the Edmonton Elks aren't out of it either, words, and they've got a massive game this week against Winnipeg, which we'll get to a little later on. I'll tell you what, it sure is a fun way to finish up the regular season with meaningful games every single weekend.
Yeah, this is exactly what the schedule makers were hoping for when they put this schedule together. I think if they could do it all over again, Huss, they'd make one key change, and that would be to have a bit more divisional games to end up the year, right? I mean, you're looking at this significant race between all 4 teams. You mentioned the Elks. I think that one's just a matter of time, but you look at the 3-horse race, if you will, behind the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and how crazy would it be for the Bombers in BC to be playing in these final weeks rather than having their entire season series wrapped up in the first couple weeks of the season, So, but that is a log jam. You mentioned the Elks aren't officially out. I believe that they will be soon in short order. The Riders haven't clinched anything yet. Right. I mean, they're in a great position, obviously with 3 games left. I think they only really need to get one more victory or can play that number game with other teams losing. But they haven't been playing very inspired football either. Like, I don't know about you, but their most recent victory here against, Ottawa was not impressive. So, I mean, to me, it's like, I think there's lots of intrigue here and certainly a very difficult prediction on what you think it's going to be, but who do you have kind of finishing in that in top spot? How do you see it playing out when the dust finally settles?
Well, what's really interesting is we got to look at the schedule here for the remainder of it. Now, Winnipeg, this is not an easy game for the Bombers going into Edmonton, who's playing for their playoff lives. Yeah. I mean, I really do think that if Edmonton either started Cody Fajardo earlier or had better finish in like a game, they've had so many close ones throughout the year, that this would be a lot more tenuous for Calgary, Winnipeg, and even BC. But obviously Edmonton's down to their playoff lives. So this week, and we'll get to these games and picks. I mean, the Riders can clinch first pretty much with that win over Toronto. Calgary's in Hamilton. We'll get to the East in a minute. They've got lots to play for. Winnipeg and Edmonton. And of course, BC has the advantages. They are home and cooled with that 9th win. The following week, the Bombers get the Riders. Now, depending on what happens, that could be a game for first place. Obviously, Saskatchewan to clinch it. You've got Edmonton. Maybe they're still alive. They've got BC. And it'll be Calgary with the Argos, who are destined for next season. And then the final week of the season, BC Sask, It's a nice spot for BC because I think it's highly likely there'll be some resting, although you never know how Corey Mace handles things, assuming they do get first. With that extra bye week, they might want to keep their guys in. Calgary plays Edmonton, and Winnipeg has Montreal, and Montreal could be playing for a lot in that game. So I think the schedule probably favors BC and Calgary. Winnipeg's been up against it for most of the season, kind of battling back into this. I think you'd have to give the nod to BC for second right now, based on their win last week, the fact they've got Saskatchewan in the last week, and they're already at 9-7. Which then makes it very interesting for who will be the crossover. And again, as we talk about this, Jeff, there will be an argument to some that the West is so stacked right now. The better option, if you're in the third or fourth spot, might actually to hit the road and go through the East.
Yeah, I mean that's a tale as old as time, Huss. I mean that's the one you hear every year around the teams who's obviously from the West, because we've never seen an East team cross over to the West. But those fan bases in and around this time of year, Huss, where the season hasn't gone great, and in some cases have been losing records, go, you know what? I think the situation is ideal, actually. Why would you want to go on the road through the West, a much more difficult division against much stronger opponents, than taking the cakewalk through the East? Well, we all know the stats here, Huss. Not only has nobody ever won the Grey Cup coming as a crossover team, they never even made it to the Grey Cup. So, but that question obviously is this year the year, and I think you can make the argument that it is. I mean, I'm with you. Like in the West here, like there's two teams. Like everyone seems to be so hot on BC, and I get it. Nathan Rourke's playing incredible football right now. Their defense has turned it around from what we saw earlier in the season. There's a lot to like in BC, but Winnipeg is that experienced team. Right? Winnipeg is that experienced team that knows how to get the job done at this time of year, knows what it takes, the preparation, the nerves, all the, the high stakes football. Like Winnipeg is a well-oiled machine when it comes to that respect. So I don't know who's going to fall out. I almost think it's going to be Calgary. Like, I think Calgary, the way they've been trending, the way we've seen Vernon Adams play, and I brought this up in last week's show, I really do think Vernon Adams just isn't a cold weather quarterback. So as the weather continues to dip, as he continues to be the face of a franchise in Calgary, not BC, where you get the comfortable confines of BC place, I really question what that situation will be. Do you look at a team like Calgary, who looked so dominant early in the year, dropping down to fourth? Like, do you see them going in and beating a resurgent Montreal Alouettes team, or a Hamilton who's going to be playing at home? To me, it doesn't look as easy as many might suggest. And whether it's Calgary, Winnipeg, or BC, I think they're going to have their hands full, because all three of those teams, while it's been really good at points and times, it hasn't been that consistent all season. The good news for two of those three teams, BC and Winnipeg, is it appears they're finding their game at the right time. It's the opposite situation in Calgary.
Yeah, and I will remind folks that, I mean, obviously BC and Winnipeg haven't played since early on this season, but throughout Nathan Rourke's career, he's stomped the rest of the Canadian Football League. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers have been the boogeyman for Nathan Rourke. 0-2 this year, I believe 0-4, or maybe even more than that over the course of his career. As far as the East goes, no surprise here, Jeff. It's coming down to Hamilton and the Montreal Alouettes. And I'll say this, I think we all agree that Montreal is a different team now that Davis Alexander has returned to the starting quarterback position. And for people that thought maybe Hamilton was completely fading after getting just blown out the building here in Winnipeg a couple of weeks ago, the Ticats and Bo Levi Mitchell found their offense again against the Argos last week. And this one will likely go right down to the wire as well, although a big tiebreaker already in the favor of the Tabbies.
Yeah, I really do think, especially with the rebound in Hamilton this past week, like this is their division. I mean, to your point, I mean, Montreal is a much different team with Davis Alexander. I think they're the best team in the East. If you're looking at teams and, not looking at records and saying, who do you not want to see in the playoffs? I'd probably rather play Hamilton right now than the Montreal Alouettes. We know they got great coaching. We know they got great quarterbacking again in Alexander, and they have a strong defense, right? Hamilton's been susceptible to bad play. They've really had to lean on their offense, right? Bo Levi Mitchell is a leading candidate, a front runner for the East MOP for a reason, right? He knows how to chuck the ball, so they're dangerous in that regard. But Montreal just feels like a more complete team. So to me, like there is a chance here that Montreal can climb their way into this game. But Hamilton, obviously, with that 2-game lead or 1-game lead, I forget what it is, has destiny in their favor. So if they continue to keep playing well and winning games, they're going to dictate that. And to our earlier conversation, that will be really interesting for Winnipeg if Montreal gets into that situation and they don't catch up to the Ticats and they have to play that first game, which will be on home soil, with how they'll treat that last regular season game. Knowing Jason Maas having a very, very similar mindset and headspace as Winnipeg Blue Bombers head coach Mike O'Shea, I would not see him dressing a full lineup and would be preferring to rest guys, especially given the lessons he's learned this year, Huss, with the injuries, with the risk of one play and what it could mean for your season.
I tell you, Alexander's not going to be out there in week 21 if they know that they're playing at home the next week based on what happened earlier on this season. Well, I mean, we're talking about Montreal and Hamilton and all the teams in the West. 2 teams that won't be part of the postseason are the Toronto Argonauts and the Ottawa Redblacks. The crossover is confirmed. There is some neat history here. As much as it seems maybe tantalizing to some fans of Western Division teams that this would be an easier road, the bottom line is though no team has ever done it. And I'm not really sure why that is. Obviously, there's a lot of travel going on, but things at the end of the season are not always the way that they've been throughout the season. And the home field in playoff games has proven to be so important. But again, considering the spots that you'd have to go through if you're a third place team in the West on the road, presumably let's give it to BC and then to Saskatchewan, there certainly is an argument that the more beneficial path could be through the East. Just get your comments on that. And by the way, quick question about the Grey Cup, which of course is in Winnipeg this year.
Mm-hmm.
In theory, if the Bombers went through the East and got to the Grey Cup representing the East, would they have to go in the visitors' dressing room for the Grey Cup, or is there a caveat in there if they're hosting that if you get through the crossover, you're staying in the home room?
So this is a topic that's been brought up, I'd say quite a bit this season, obviously with the West crossover seeming inevitable, and then of course the Bombers being in that mix. To answer your question, Haas, and I've called members of the Bombers office and tried to get confirmation on this, and yeah, they would be the visitors. That would be the rule. Now, a couple of the people I spoke to would say, no way in hell would Wade Miller allow it, and that he would probably find some, bylaw in some historic record book that allowed that team to be in their place. Here's the thing, Huss. On that topic, if you're the Saskatchewan Roughriders, remember we're in the Paranoia Football League, right? Like this is a league with a long history of spying and kind of unfair game playing and stuff like this. Like if you're the Saskatchewan Roughriders and you are playing the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, do you really want to be in the home locker room? Like think about all the things that the home team, I use in brackets, would be able to do. Obviously, I kid, they would obviously be above board and all that in that kind of situation, but that would be the case. I couldn't see a situation that wouldn't turn the league on its head in any other way, right? Because if it wasn't the Bombers, if it was any other East team, the Riders would get that. So I do not see, and including any West crossover team. So I think just common sense would say just that. As far as crossovers, I mean, again, we talked about the history behind it and how it doesn't bode well for the crossover team. But to your point, I mean, do you really want to play on the road in the West? How difficult that is? I think the lack of success in the crossover has been not because has been because of travel, because of playing in another team's stadium. We often hear how difficult it is to win in this league, to win in professional sports. It's even more difficult to do that on the road. And here's another element I'd say more often than not, Huss, the West team goes over there as the favorite. So like it's almost like
bingo.
The pressure comes, like the pressure is on the West team to win in the East, playoff route in an East venue. So maybe that plays into it a little bit too. And the fact that you are, obviously the visiting team and you have all those things, but you have the expectations of a home team.
We'll get to, of course, CFL 110 presented by our friends over at CoolBet. Grey Cup odds are updated. We'll get to those as well as our picks for this weekend in the Canadian Football League. But before we put the Toronto Argonauts and Ottawa Red Blacks to bed on CFL 110 as non-playoff teams, let's quickly take a look at the situations around both of those squads as they get ready for the offseason. First off, we've got to talk about Chad Kelly. Like Kelly earlier this year, former MOP, starting quarterback who had that horrific injury last year, late in the season in the playoffs, Jeff, has been back with the club. He has been, he put out a tweet and a thing that the comeback is ready to go. There was a big conversation as could they actually start him over Nick Arbuckle, who'd been so hot? Well, now Nick Arbuckle is out for the season, but it's pretty clear that with where the Argos are right now, it's on to 2026 for Chad Kelly. Why do you think it went down the road? Was this just him getting a little excited about getting in? Was the Arbuckle quality of play a factor in keeping him there? And at this point, does it just not make sense for Chad Kelly to try to get out there and game action?
All of that, like with Chad Kelly, and I mean this respectfully to a certain degree, like could be a lot of things, right? I mean, it could be setbacks, could be, the rehab didn't go as planned. It could be he thought he would be okay. I mean, at this situation, even if he is okay, and I think that's what Ryan did with his comments alluded to, is this, the writing on the wall kind of being sitting him out is, do you want to risk going through something similar next season, right? Like it's been such a circus around him. Do you really want to put him in, when you're probably evaluating other players on your roster, which means you probably don't have your ideal offensive line and other players in other positions. So I think it just makes the most sense. It's obviously a disappointing season for the Argos. It's a disappointing season for Kelly. And I mean, just to kind of comment on his situation, like it really was, I don't have insight into it. I mean, I haven't done a lot of digging as far as, what the saga behind this is. I mean, again, like it's a guy who broke his leg in last year's East Final. It wasn't like it was going to be this easy rehab and return to dominance. He was always going to miss time. I think the surprise though is really how the Argos handled it, right? He never started on the 6-game injured list, which means, I think that was partially to do so he could practice with the team throughout this. But when it was evident he wasn't coming back, it was like, okay, you didn't put him on that first. Like, are you going to put him on now? Eventually they do put him on. They do kind of get that cap relief. And now you're in this situation where it's like your team's so bad that you're what's the point here? And I guess it begs the question, like, if the Argos were in a playoff position, if they weren't eliminated from the playoffs, like would Chad Kelly be ready to go now? Like, is he ready to go? I don't even know if we have clarity on that at this point, right? And again, when you look at, not only the assignment to the, the injured lists and whatnot, but like Chad Kelly came out and told everybody in a not so, subtle social media post that he was going to be back in week 15. We're heading into week 19 here, so simple math suggests it's been a full month since that now deleted post. And you gotta think to yourself, like, and I don't want to just drag this guy all the time. I mean, I've done that in the past. I've done it enough, but like it kind of goes back to the maturity. Like where did things get to a point where like it was like, I'm coming, like, wait, I'm coming around the corner. Like, it's all about me and my return. And then you don't even return. Like, the irony that his uncle Jim Kelly has got more airtime on game day than he has this season isn't lost in this situation. But I guess, like, that is the situation in Toronto, and it's going to be much different than Ottawa, Huss, because you can't really, I mean, you can certainly evaluate the Argos. Everyone's going to have to look in the mirror there, but this is an organization who certainly failed miserably this year to go back-to-back Grey Cup championships and also has the potential of a dynasty because they won 2 of the last 3 trophies, right? So like, to me, it's like, it's kind of one of those years where it's like, just a lot of crappy luck, all kind of hovered and surfaced or was all pretty much built out of Chad Kelly's absence. And now it's just like, let's play out the season, right? I think a lot of people thought the Argos would maybe hang on there a little bit longer. I certainly did because of a lot of respect I have for Coach Ryan Dinwiddie. But even his season has been a circus and how he's approached post-game interviews. But that's it for Toronto. And I don't think we're going to be talking too much about them here moving forward.
Yeah, listen, it has been a bit of a saga throughout the year, and Arbuckle was in a lot of ways one of the few bright lights for the Argos this year. But just a lost season for a team that, had very high expectations coming into the year. And they're off the next season. I imagine the next time we'll see Chad Kelly will be opening day of the 2026 Canadian Football League campaign. Moving one notch down to the bottom of the 19 league is the Ottawa Red Blacks. They're 4-11 entering this week. They made the playoffs last year. They seemed to take that step forward. It was one step forward, seemingly, and two steps back. This team has been, just not up to the task more often than not this year. And it certainly begs the question as to what changes are coming in the nation's capital, Hammer. General Manager Sean Burke has 1 year left on his contract. Bobby Dice, the head coach, has 1 year left on his contract. And it really did feel earlier in the season like Bobby Dice and the coaching staff were coaching to save their jobs mid-season. Very hard to imagine they stay the course with this group going forward. What are you hearing? What do you expect to see happen once the Canadian Football League season is over with the franchise in the nation's capital?
Bobby Dice's seat, if you will, and the hotness of it has been a topic of conversation pretty much this entire second half of the season, right? I mean, as the Ottawa Red Blacks, because I mean, even he signed his extension at the beginning of this year, right? Following a 2024 campaign that while it was progress, right? They finally got into the CFL playoffs for the first time since winning the Grey Cup, I believe in 2019. That was a nice thing, but they had such a great start, faltered down the stretch, and then didn't even get a home playoff game, right? Lost that game in the East semi. So it's, what really was that year, but it looked like it was going to be trending better this year. And that's why you ink Bobby Dice to an extension through the end of next season. Now you're sitting here and you're wondering, well, with what, like 5 wins in his last 20 or so games here, how do you really justify bringing him back for another season?
Tough to sell to the fan base.
For sure. And here's the thing. The organization likes Bobby Dice. Like, Bobby Dice is of course, but even more so, I don't know if they assign blame to him for the season. So, and, Sean Burke too, I feel like, Sean Burke's an interesting case because it's not like his run's been great in Ottawa. He's a well-known guy around the league, but if you were to base him on his tenure in Ottawa, it's a failing grade, right? He's brought players in, he's overpaid for some players, he's done the splashy signings, and they just haven't really panned out, right? Ottawa's roster looks talented, so you immediately go to coaching, but I do think there needs to be evaluation from the general manager side here, and whether or not you want to, as you mentioned, Huss, kind of clean house here. This is the thing I think is working in favor for both Sean Burke and Bobby Dice, is because I don't think you give Sean Burke an extension or another head coach or like whatever, but I think you keep them together, make the excuse that this season was a really tough one for you. Injuries, obviously we know Drew Brown, and we can get to him after. He obviously had another injury-riddled season. They had injuries all over the place. They had to make they were dishing guys out, by the end of the year. But it just nothing really worked. But my point here is that the ownership group, I don't think, I wonder if they have the willingness to kind of usher in a new group, sign someone to 3-4 year contracts and kind of promise fans a resurgence, right? That was supposed to be with Bobby Dice. So I do think I'd almost bet in this position, Huss, that they go back to them for one more season. Now that's going to, I talk to the guys in Ottawa and they talk about how they like Sean Burke. They talk about how they like Bobby Dice, but they say, if you listen to the radio shows, the post-game shows, like, Bobby Dice is not a well-liked guy. So you have to wonder, for a fan base that has been hurting after being arguably one of the best, if not the best fan base for a lot of years, at least the youngest, how they're going to react to it. But again, it might just come down to dollars and cents, and that there isn't that willingness for OSEG to put in the work and to go search and find the people to right this ship, then they might just go back with the boat that they're already on.
Well, you make a good point. I mean, there is that. I mean, I can't think off the top of my head of like an obvious guy waiting in the wings.
That's the other thing.
I mean, like there's not like a clear, like this head coach and GM can come in and we have full confidence that this guy is going to turn things around.
Right. There's no Corey Mace. There's no Buck Pierce, right? There's no guy who's been winning Grey Cups and putting together big resumes. That's just like, here you go. He's ready. There isn't. And to the point about Drew Brown, it's the same situation. Because that's the other guy in this equation, Huss, is what do you do with Drew Brown? Because it's kind of like hockey and a goalie. Show me a good goalie, I'll show you a good head coach. Show me a good quarterback, I'll show you a good head coach. And right now, Bobby Dice, and you could go as far as say Lapo before that, didn't really have great quarterbacking, right? And especially with the injury situation. So that's another one here. Like, is Drew Brown the guy? And if you can't trust Drew Brown, I personally think you can. Who do you go get?
There is definitely not, I mean, an obvious source of winning just waiting to be signed, because if that was the case, they probably would have done that already. I'll be interested to see how things go. I mean, obviously there's costs involved in turning over your general manager and head coach with term left on their contract. I mean, maybe they do go that way. I think it might hurt them within part of the fan base, but I mean, the CFL, I mean, just ask the Argos. They've been making some decisions based on money. It's a lot easier just to go on the road and make some money in Winnipeg and Hamilton, Saskatchewan than playing your games in Ontario. Well, it might be easier to stay the course with those guys and give them a year to try to turn it around and save their jobs. I just do wonder what that means for the on-field product and certainly the confidence of the fan base. Listen, Hammer, before we get to this week's games, just quickly, we're getting down to the short strokes here in the MOP stakes, and it really does sort of feel like we're staring down a 3-horse race right now. 3 quarterbacks, as it normally is, although it hasn't always been recently. Bo Levi Mitchell, who had that brilliant year last year, but didn't make the playoffs, which I think really cost him.
Yeah.
You've got Nathan Rourke, who's absolutely humming right now. And certainly if you want to look at recency bias, I think Nathan Rourke is the guy. And we can't forget Trevor Harris, who's led Saskatchewan to the best record in the league. Now, just looking at statistics going into this game, and again, Nathan Rourke, I believe, has 1 extra game played. He's played 16 games, although he did miss a couple games. That, like, the BC has played 16. Hamilton has played 16. Saskatchewan has played 15. So keep that in mind. There are 3 more games for the Riders should Trevor Harris play all the games. Passing yards, Bo has a slight lead, 47-26. Rourke is 45-84. Trevor Harris, 4,097. Passing TDs, Bo Levi is number 1 with 32. Nathan Rourke has 27. Trevor Harris has 22. An important number I should mention in the Rourke candidacy is the 9 rushing touchdowns he has. And these aren't all just 1-yard sneaks. He's just 2 off of Dustin Crum's league lead for touchdowns. Bo was the clear leader at the start. Rourke missed some time at the start of the year. Harris and the Riders have been pretty consistent. I'll say that I think the fact that Harris has benefited from the league's best defense probably hurts his candidacy a little bit more. In a lot of ways, it seems like Rourke's been putting the BC Lions on his shoulders. I have to admit, I'm leaning to the Canadian right now, and I think the fact that he is a Canadian and what he's done this year is certainly not going to hurt him with the Football Reporters of Canada. How do you see the MOP race with just a few games left in the season?
Yeah, I was just looking at some stats too. I was looking at them before. I do really think it comes down to a 2-horse race here. I think it's going to be Bo Levi Mitchell out of the East, and I think it's going to be Nathan Rourke out of the West. You mentioned the 9 rushing touchdowns by Nathan Rourke, which you added. They aren't all 1-yard sneaks, right? He's rushed in for big touchdowns.
He's got 477 on the ground. I should have mentioned
that.
This is just
yards.
what
I was getting to.
Okay.
Is he also has the 8th most rushing yards in the CFL. Like there's a couple of teams that would use him as their option in the backfield, right? So like, he does have, nearly 500 rushing yards. He's obviously going to eclipse that. I do think that's a big part of it. Often we talk about voting bias and whatnot, and obviously being the president of the Football Reporters of Canada, I actually haven't voted in the last few years because I'm actually the tiebreaker. I've had to tie break maybe one or two in the last X amount of years, not many. And they've always been at the team level. It's never been an award at the end. That's always been figured out. But we people often talk about voting tendencies, right? About how people like good stories, or they like and I think in these cases you have two good stories, right? You have Bo Levi Mitchell, who myself included was writing him off a couple years ago, saying like, what are the Hamilton Tiger Cats doing bringing this guy in? And my thought on that I only felt more validated in that opinion when he was injured that first year, right? Thinking, what are they doing with this guy? Certainly that's not the case anymore. And you wonder how many years Bo Levi Mitchell could be in this league, given the way he's playing, right? So, but I also think when you look at Nathan Rourke, and he's benefited from this, I don't want to say it benefited from this in the past and that he wasn't deserving of it, but his passport matters to a lot of people. The fact that he's Canadian matters to a lot of people. And I do think whether it's conscious or not, when you're looking at two different players and you're comparing them, I think there is a chance that you go with the Canadian, right? Again, I'm not influencing any voters. Everyone's going to do what they want to do and pick the person they want to pick. But I wouldn't be surprised, if either of those win. But to me, I think it will end up being Nathan Rourke, assuming he can continue to play the way he's playing. Because to your point, Huss, recency bias is also, somewhat of a real thing here. And the way Nathan Rourke's been playing, if he can play that way, I think a lot of people will be talking about him at the end of the year.
Hey, I want to give a shout out to everybody in chat. Shout out to our pal, the Jets Pope. You always see him at the games. He's driving to Altona for work, and this show is literally saving his life this morning. Happy to be here for you, Pope. I see so many of the regulars here, and I know Duck Dad is in, who is a noted cool better and part of our Lock Shop gang. I should give a shout out and see if any of you took a certain host of CFL 110's advice and rode with me on Nathan Rourke. I'm just looking into the open bets at CoolBet. August 13th, we got Nathan Rourke for MOP at 11-1, Jeff. Wow. I would suggest that number is probably closer to even money right now, considering where things are at with this group. So I know that there will be some viewers of CFL 110 and cool bettors that are hoping.
Who kind of is getting shafted here? I don't think you never mentioned Keon Hatcher, did you? Or
no,
Kenny
I just
Lawler?
went to the
those are the kind of the two guys that, like, I think if you're talking about other guys, Matthew Betts, who's really turned things on in recent weeks, he leads the league with sacks. I think he's got 15 now or something around there. So he's gonna has potential to eclipse even 20 with how many games they have. But Keon Hatcher has like 1,500 yards and I think it's 7 touchdowns. And then obviously, I mean, everybody was talking about Kenny Lawler through the first handful of weeks of the season. He's kind of more, obviously impressive numbers and all career highs too, Huss. But I don't know, 1,200, almost on knocking on the door at 1,300 receiving yards and 13 touchdowns, which is really nice, obviously. The issue being it, though, Huss, is the two quarterbacks, the guys that are throwing the ball to these players are the ones that we're talking about. And if they're going to have success, so are the guys that are throwing them the ball. So I think they certainly deserve honorable mentions. And maybe down the road here, if we can believe what Stuart Johnson's been saying and wanting to change some of the more, maybe some of the more dated things going on in the league, and that's not reflection of the rules, whether I agree with them or not, just to be clear here. But there has been a lot of talks about eliminating tweaking the awards format where it's not winners in each division up against each other. It's a top 3. So I think this is a perfect example where it might not be one of those guys is going to win the award, but it's nice to be recognized for the season you have. And both those players, Keon Hatcher and Kenny Lawler, would certainly fall into that group.
I mean, listen, the MVP historically, and because of the importance of the position, will always be a quarterback first award. I would be in favor of adding an Offensive Player of the Year award. But again, the NFL does that, so everyone would go crazy that that's Americanizing the awards. But I'm with you. I mean, I think like this is a perfect example of a year that there's 3 players definitely worthy of being tabbed as finalists for the award. And, often you'll have the 2 best players in the league in the same conference, and it doesn't make sense that they're finalists. So I would certainly support that change. Let's get to the games this week. Of course, every week we hit our games. We are back-to-back on the CFL 110 parlay. Let's see if good things can come in threes. And I will Barry Horowitz myself with a little self-pat on the back. It was not great at times this season, but I've run the table the last 2. So I don't think I've ever gone 3 straight weeks perfect. So the gauntlet is laid down. Let's start it off on Friday night in Saskatchewan. It is the Toronto Argonauts and the Saskatchewan Roughriders. The Argos, without Chad Kelly, without Nick Arbuckle, going to take on the Riders. Now, the line in this one is 10.5. The Riders did cover last week, although it certainly was not the most impressive of sorts. Their defense was great. They held the team to 13 points, but they only put up 20. I'll say this. The Argos are such a weird team, Jeff, that even in the circumstances that they are right now, I still think that they will come out and compete. You'll have to play at a high level to win. I just feel like in this case, Saskatchewan at home, night game with the opportunity to clinch the West and a home playoff game through Mosaic Stadium is a tough task for the Argos. But 10.5, where are you at on this one?
Yeah, obviously when you start getting up into double-digit spreads in the Canadian Football League, you start having to really reflect on things because you start factoring in backdoor covers. You start factoring in, prevent defenses, in particular in the CFL. It just seems like those garbage TDs come all the time, whereas in the NFL, not so much. So, it really comes down to 2 different things. Like, do you put your trust in Ryan Dinwiddie to put together a game plan despite his troops being out of the playoffs? Do you expect his troops being eliminated from the playoffs to show up? I mean, I think this is going to be the potential of maybe some younger guys getting opportunities, right? Being eliminated from the playoffs might be a bit of a scouting mission here. So you wonder the talent level that might come in and out of the roster. Also, you have to factor in these guys might be fresh, right? Some guys might be playing for their jobs in Toronto. So that, that wanting to perform and execute and, not mail it in, I have to think that would be high, right? And that kind of feels nice when you're talking about a 10.5 point spread. Now, flipping over to the other side, as I mentioned earlier in the show, like the Riders haven't been playing that great of football the last month, right? So they need to right the ship. They need to get on the same page, if you will, as the BC Lions and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, who seem to be playing, their best football right now going into the playoffs. So they're going to want to make a statement at home in front of their fans. They still have plenty to play for. As we mentioned, they haven't locked up first place in the West, and we know how valuable that is. Just go ask the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. So there really is not a shortage of incentive for the Riders to roll over this banged up Argos team. So depending on which side you want to fall on is really going to be the basis, I imagine, of your pick here. And for me, I'm going to go with the with the Riders. I think the Riders at home, I don't love the spread. I'm not super confident about it. But the Argos are a lost cause now. Like, they're not playing spoiler in week 19. Like, this isn't, they're not, whatever. I think they're going to have an okay effort, but I think it's just not going to be enough in front of a raucous, sea of green. So I'm going to take the Riders to cover this one. Huss, you?
I'm with you. I don't feel great about it, but I do think that you make great points about the Riders really needing to raise their level of play, considering what is to come. They've got the incentive of trying to lock down the West with, BC and Calgary and Winnipeg behind them. And listen, this is a case, and in the CFL, I mean, you'll have a lot of guys that'll be there ready to go. I think you'll have a lot of guys that are already thinking about the offseason and maybe hitting the clubs in Saskatchewan on Thursday, the night before the game. So of the 4 games, this is
the club in Saskatchewan.
Yeah, yes. This is the one game that I probably will not be putting anything on. But for the picks, give me Saskatchewan -10.5. I'll roll with you on that one. Of course, all our lines over at CoolBet. And if you haven't played there before, 2 things. Use the promo code WST for a 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit. And mark down October 22nd. That's the next event of the WST poker tourney, where everyone is going to be gunning for our co-host, Jeff Hamilton, who has now won this tournament twice, and there will be a $100 bounty on his head, in addition to mine and Michael Remus. So you can follow our socials at Winnipeg Sports Talk for that. But October 22nd, 8 p.m. Central Time is the next tourney. So mark that down. We'd love to have you join us. Next up, Hamilton. Speaking of teams looking to clinch their division, they've got the Calgary Stampeders, who are all of a sudden, after that great start, in a bit of a free fall right now. Jeff, the line's only 2.5 in this one. And certainly we saw the good Argos offense last week, far cry from the team that was limited to a field goal in Winnipeg the week before. I think we saw a lot of great things from Hamilton last week, albeit against a banged-up Toronto team. But I just have concern about what's happened with Calgary over the last little while. And it kind of starts with the quarterback. Vernon Adams hasn't been himself. He said that he sort of lost confidence. You made the case that as it gets colder and later in the year, his effectiveness is challenged more. I just think that Hamilton at home, laying only 2.5. This is a great opportunity for both Hamilton and Saskatchewan to have resounding performances in front of their fans to get ready to host a game at home where they can make their way to Winnipeg for the Grey Cup. Give me the Ticats -2.5.
Yeah, not going to be much tension between you and I through those first 2 picks, and simply because of what you just said. Like, I don't know how you can trust the Stampeders right now with the way they're playing, and VA, whether it's a cold weather issue or something else. I mean, his body language is not good. I mean, he looks like he's struggling, like it's not coming easy, right? And so you look at Bo Levi Mitchell, the confidence of last week, right, putting up points against a good Toronto defense, even if they are banged up on offense. So I take that confidence, and certainly, again, similar situation as you said, as a Saskatchewan game, they're at home in front of their fans, and they haven't clinched first place in their division yet. They have an opportunity to. Why would you wait? And if factoring all that in, to say you only have to win by a field goal for the home team, like, to me, this seems like one team who, again, in the Ticats haven't been knocking the bricks off anybody. Obviously, good win against Toronto, but a miserable loss to Winnipeg the week before. But again, Calgary hasn't shown much of anything, and I don't have them in this one in a Roush's stadium like Tim Hortons Field. So to me, this one feels quite obvious with Hamilton. I'm going to take them covering the spread by a field goal.
Yeah, if you gave me a challenge and just said bet one game, take one side this week, I'm taking Hamilton at -2.5, because the other two I think are real challenging lines. You got Winnipeg and Edmonton, both teams coming off the bye. Obviously Winnipeg with their best performance top to bottom of the year the previous week in that blowout of the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Bombers have seemingly in that game turned the corner. It really sort of felt like they're back, but there's still a lot of work to do, and a wide variance of finishes, which include a home game at Princess Auto Stadium in week 1 of the playoffs, or potentially on the road as the 4th place team, assuming that they clinch that spot. Should mention Edmonton is still alive, and they'll be playing with their playoff lives. To me, I think that the writing is sort of on the wall for Edmonton. I mean, they realize how long of odds are for them, what would need to happen for them to make the playoffs. For them, though, they've just got to focus on winning a football game. I tend to feel that the Bombers are coming around at the most important time of the year. I hate this line. I actually do think it should be a little bit lower, but again, what we saw from Winnipeg in their last time out, I think people remember this Bomber team that has been so dominant in the division, in the playoffs the last number of years. but I think I'm still going to take Winnipeg in this one. I think that this is very important for them to build off of what they did against Hamilton. This is not an easy game. Edmonton has been very good after that tough start. Cody Fajardo, is going to make you earn every single point and, in a victory. But I will give the Bombers the benefit of the doubt at this time of the year, considering what is on the table. But to me, this is closer to like a 1 or 2 point spread, if you want to even give that to them. I mean, to me, it's sort of a pick 'em, but I could see this game being in excess of 4. So I will ride with the Bombers at this point of the year. But to me, this is almost a coin flip.
I didn't catch it. Was it 3.5?
3.5, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I thought it. Yeah, so we're gonna go 3 for 3 here, and I'll tell you why. Huss is because I've seen this movie before. I've been to Edmonton this late in the year where they've been getting back into where they need to be and whatever. And Winnipeg, while they haven't been, as dominant in previous years, to your point, have been finding their game at the most important time. And I do think it's going to be one of those 4-point wins, 4 or 5, maybe even 6-point victories for Winnipeg. And I can see it being a close-ish game. And then I can see kind of the Bombers pulling out in that fourth quarter and maybe, Edmonton making a game of it and falling, still 4 points or more short in it. I think the only thing, Huss, that makes this movie a little more intriguing for Edmonton is you got the bomber killer in Cody Fajardo, right? We've seen this guy's resurgence this season, and you talked about it. I mean, we might be talking about a much different West Division race here if Cody Fajardo is in the driver's seat to start the season. But this guy holds grudges and takes things personal. And so I don't know if he considers the Bombers like on his shit list or not, but if he does, and I believe that list is probably fairly long, Huss, of all the critics he's had, whether that be media or teams or players or whatever, and just what he was able to do in that Grey Cup, obviously a couple of years back. I just think he's obviously the X factor here for the Elks, and why maybe 3.5 points. Well, I'm not necessarily there with you, believing it should be lower. I think 2.5 points would have been a slam dunk for Winnipeg. I do think that Cody Fajardo and what he's done this season in his no quit attitude and the fact that the Elks aren't mathematically eliminated and could be officially eliminated with this game, I still think the Bombers do just enough to break their hearts by more than 3.5.
Yeah, and listen, I mean, I'm really looking at the Bomber defense in this game to see if they can build on what they did to the Hamilton Tiger Cats with just a thorough performance from start to finish. Of course, Edmonton has Cody. They've also got a hell of a running game. Justin Rankin has been rolling. So I say this: if the Bombers are going to cover this number and win this game and clinch their playoff spot and put themselves into a better position in the West, they are going to need to earn it against the Edmonton team that has earned a lot of respect throughout this year and seems to be trending in the right direction. The final game on the docket is Ottawa and Montreal, and this one, Hammer, is 13.5 for the Montreal Alouettes, an absolutely massive number. And I get it. I mean, they've got their guys back. They are looking really good. They're trying to, kind of ascend as the end of the season comes and get ready for that East semi. But man, this is a lot of points. And as bad as Ottawa has looked the last couple of games, I still do believe they love their head coach. I think that there is a real level of sort of embarrassment that they are where they are right now. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that this team is just going to show up, cash a game check, and move on to the next one and into the off season. That being said, I'm still not positive that they can hang with the Montreal Alouettes and stay within 2 touchdowns. But this is a massive, massive number. And I have to admit, I'm sort of leaning Ottawa just because of how big that number is. And I do think that there is some pride in that room and some love for Bob Dice that I think we'll see on the field. This line, Huss, is so disrespectful to the Ottawa Red Blacks. Like, this is the Canadian Football League. And I know we just talked about a 10.5 point spread. But that's against a team whose first and second quarterbacks
are out, right? Like this is a team who still has access to their top guy, and they like Dustin Crum as their backup. So it's like, what do you mean it's almost 2 touchdowns? And this is where I come with this, Huss, because like I talked about, in previous games here, it's kind of on 2 trains of thought for me. Like, I've seen Montreal come out hot in games. Davis Alexander giving the yap to the other bench like within 5 minutes of the game, and then shoving it down their throats for the ensuing 50 minutes, right? Like, or what? And so, like, to me, it's like, um, I could see that happening, but it's like, flip it over to Ottawa, and it's like, all you need to do is not lose by 2 touchdowns. Like, how pathetic are you? Like, it's one, like, playing for your coach, playing for your coach is winning the game. Like, all you're asking for them here is to lose by multiple scores and try to keep the game respectable. And some of the things I said in the, in other matchups, like the potential for backdoor covers, like Jason Moss isn't a coach like I said earlier, like a Mike O'Shea. Mike O'Shea is not going to run the score up. He's not going to protect the score. Like, Mike O'Shea doesn't think 24-0 is secure in the CFL. So it's not like he's going to, play aggressive like super non-aggressive football, and he's not going to play aggressive football. He'll play smart situational football, which will mean running the ball, easy passes, trying to move the chains in a couple downs, right? And if the Alouettes do get to a point where they're leading in the second half, say they're up by 17 points, 20 points, 24 points even, they'll probably go into that mode, and Drew Brown will throw the lights out till the clocks turn 0. Like, Drew Brown will get 90 passing yards in the final 40 seconds of a game where they're losing by 3 touchdowns. So when you factor all those things in there, you and I, Huss, I think this might be a CFL 110 first, maybe just this season, perhaps since our entire existence, that we're going 4 for 4 together, because I'm with you. I'm going with the Red Blacks and pleading, dare I suggest, don't be pathetic. Like, that's the bar here. Don't be pathetic. And if they can't do that, everybody deserves to be fired in that building.
It's funny. I'm just looking at the slate of games, and I have some this is breaking news to me, probably not breaking news to anybody else. This is Thanksgiving weekend coming up.
You haven't arranged plans? You haven't arranged your plans this weekend? If it's going to be Monday, if it's going to be Sunday, if it's going to be...
This game is at Monday, Monday. 1 o'clock Eastern, noon on Monday. So we'll have the game on Friday, 2 on Saturday. You can watch the NFL and some puck on Sunday, and then a matinee on Thanksgiving Monday between Ottawa and Montreal. So you want to go with the last 3 games? We go Hamilton, Winnipeg, Ottawa for this one?
Yeah, let's do it. Because I didn't love the 10.5 points. Both of us didn't want to touch it. So if you want to go the last 3 games, I think that's a great CFL 110 package.
Let's do that. And again, folks, I'll fire this over to Pat and Jake and at Coolbet and get this up shortly. I will remind you that the earlier usually we've been on the right side of the lines. Like last week was a perfect example. If you bet the CFL 110 parlay right when it was posted, you got more than plus 650. By the next day with the line movements, it was down in and around plus 580. And I think it was close to 5-1 by the time it kickoff. So anyways, you can monitor those lines, but we'll have that up in the combo cards right on the main page of Coolbet. Just look at the CFL 110 parlay. It's plus 612 if you put it in right now. I'm sure we'll get that boosted in and around 7-1. And one other thing you should know, if you are betting CFL at Coolbet, every week you have one option to use a 30% win boost. I actually used a 30% win boost on the futures just quickly on our way out. Here's the way the Grey Cup odds are shaping up right now. And the Bombers actually went down last week. Sask is the favorite right now at plus 270. Hamilton at 3-1. Montreal at plus 380. Calgary at plus 470. BC 5-1. And then the Bombers at 13-1. Elk still on the board at 80-1. I've been scratching my head over the last couple of weeks how the Bombers are such a massive, massive dog compared to Calgary and BC. I think if you're a Bomber fan that's got some faith right now, you just say, thank you very much. But it is a very, very wide open right now. Certainly at the top, and you understand why Saskatchewan and Calgary are the top two favorites. But very interesting that there's such a big difference between BC's number and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Again, you can just hit that in the futures tab once you go to CFL. But we're going to roll with the Riders, although we're not putting it on the parlay. And then Ticats -2.5, Bombers -3.5, and Ottawa, please show up +13.5 in this game. Hammer, as always, a lot of fun. We're getting down to the short strokes. A lot of interesting games still on the table, and we come closer to welcoming all of our friends and CFL fans from across the country right here to Winnipeg for the Grey Cup in a month.
Yeah, looking forward to it. This is always the fun time. It's always a stressful time for me as I get ready for the big week and putting on events and just getting ready for it. It's going to be really interesting, Huss. I know we'll talk about it in future episodes here, but it just seems so difficult right now to predict how things are going to end. We know we're looking at probably 2 division winners, but the rest of it in those divisions and how they play out, particularly on that west side, is going to be must-watch TV here for the weeks. And I look forward to chopping it all up with you every Tuesday.
One other note to fans both here in the Peg as well as those CFL 110 listeners that might be coming to take part in the Grey Cup. Stay tuned to the program over the next couple of weeks. We're going to plan a bit of a party with our friends at CoolBet. You'll all be invited. I'm going to look at having a few of our other friends in the media, maybe a little bit of a roundtable, talking up the big stories in and around the league on Grey Cup week. Probably get a few of the players that aren't participating in the game out as well. So we'll have information on that for you in the next couple of weeks as we get closer to the CFL playoffs. Again, big thanks to CoolBet for their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk and CFL 110. Keep your eyes peeled for the CFL 110 boosted parlay. We're trying to go 3-0 or 3 in a row. And of course, 3-0 with the picks. That's going to do it for us. Thanks so much to Connor Rabchak producing the show. Everyone that joined us in chat. Yes, we'll be talking extensively about the Kyle Connor extension today, 1 p.m. in the afternoon, live on Winnipeg Sports Talk. And again, subscribe to Winnipeg Sports Talk if you haven't already for CFL 110 podcast and the daily show with all things in the national sports scene, but also focusing on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and the Winnipeg Jets. For the Hammer, I'm Huss. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the CFL and a happy Thanksgiving. We'll see you next week right here on CFL 110.